Admiral Susan Wright stood still as alien members of the Galactic Council walked around the display of human weapons. She and her team had spent months getting ready for this day. They hoped to show that Earth could be a strong military ally, not just another planet that needed protection. "And this simple device is what you call a railgun?" asked Counselor Ziv Torax, a bug-like alien with see-through wings. His wings fluttered in a way that Susan knew meant he was laughing. His hard outer shell gleamed under the bright lights. Susan kept her face calm. "Yes, Counselor. It shoots objects at high speeds using magnetic fields." "Yes, we know the basic science," cut in Counselor Mahari, who looked like a snake. Her scaly body curled tighter as if she found this funny. Most species make such tools as a first step before finding better gravity-based weapons. Alan Parker, Earth's ambassador, cleared his throat. "With respect, counselors, human weapons may look simple, but they work very well and rarely fail." The room filled with alien laughter. The biggest alien's loud laugh almost shook the displays of human guns, missiles, and energy weapon tests. "Work well? Against what?" asked the crystal-shaped alien, whose body bent light across the walls. "Your people have not even left your small part of space. You haven't seen the real dangers out in the deep dark." Susan looked at Commander William Hayes, who stood guard by the weapons. His jaw was so tight she thought he might break a tooth. They both knew what human weapons could do. They had fought in the Moon War of 2138. "High Counselor," Susan said to the oldest alien who led the group, "we know our tools may seem basic compared to the amazing things we've seen since joining the galactic community, but humans have always been good at making new things when times are hard." The High Counselor blinked his 8 eyes one after another. Susan had learned this meant he was being nice but didn't really care. "Admiral Wright, we like Earth's wish to help with military matters, but the Council thinks humanity would help the galaxy better through your art and life studies. Your kind has shown great skill in art and stories." Susan felt her face get hot with anger, but Ambassador Parker put a hand on her shoulder to calm her. "We thank the Council for thinking about this," Parker said in a calm way. "Maybe a test that won't be needed," the High Counselor said. "The Council has made up its mind. Earth will stay as a protected planet for the next year. You may go now." As they packed up their things, Susan heard the big alien say to the one next to him, "Think of facing the Zivaki fleet with bullet weapons. They would be gone before firing one shot." The human team left without talking. They kept their heads high even though they felt shame. No one spoke until they got back on their ship. "What now?" Commander Hayes finally asked, his voice tight with anger. Ambassador Parker looked deep in thought. "We go back to Earth and tell the United Earth Defense Council." "And then?" Susan asked. Parker's face got hard. "Then we hope the Galactic Council never needs to see our simple weapons in action." He looked out the window where the huge Galactic Council station shone like a silver jewel against the black of space. "Because if they do, it means something has gone very wrong." Susan nodded with a grim face. After many years in Earth's military, she knew one thing for sure. Thinking humans were weak had always been a costly mistake. 3 days later, Susan sat in her office at Earth Defense HQ. The Lao meeting with the Council still burned in her mind. Earth had joined the galactic community 5 years ago, after alien ships landed in major cities across the planet. They had come in peace, offering to bring humans into a vast network of spacefaring species. For most people on Earth, it was a dream come true. New tech, new medicines, and the stars within reach at last. But for military minds like Susan, it raised hard questions. Where did Earth fit in this new order? How could they keep their people safe? The Council had made it clear. Earth was a baby in their eyes. Cute, full of promise, but not ready for the adult table. Susan looked at the reports on her desk. Earth ships were being built with new tech from the Council, but kept their human-made weapons. The Council had laughed at these old weapons. They used fancy gravity beams and energy pulses that seemed like magic to humans. But Susan had a gut feeling. Sometimes old ways worked when new ones failed. Human history was full of such cases. Her office door opened and Commander Hayes walked in with a datapad. "Admiral, we got the test results back from the Jupiter range," he said. Susan took the pad and looked at the numbers. Their newest railgun had fired a metal slug at 1/10 the speed of light. The test target, built with the same shields the Council ships used, had been cut in half. "They still think we're using simple bullets," Susan said. Hayes nodded. "Their shields block energy well. But a solid object moving that fast? Nothing they have can stop it." "Have you shown these results to anyone else?" Susan asked. "Just our team and General Clark. Should we tell the Council?" Susan thought for a moment. "No, let them think we're still playing with toys. Meanwhile, put these guns on every ship we build." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You think we'll need them?" Susan turned to look out her window at the Earth below. "Beautiful. Blue and so very small in the vast universe." "I hope not," she said. "But the galaxy is a big place. The Council told us they've been fighting the Zivaki for centuries without winning. Maybe they need a new approach." She tapped the data pad. "Maybe they need us, even if they don't know it yet." Hayes stood straighter. "I'll get the factories working around the clock." "Do it quiet. Don't make waves," Susan ordered. "And Hayes, make sure our ship captains train with these weapons every day." As Hayes left, Susan looked back at Earth. The Council might laugh now, but Susan Wright knew something they didn't. Humans had spent their whole history finding new ways to fight. If trouble came, Earth would be ready, and the first shot would change everything. 3 months after the meeting with the Galactic Council, Susan Wright walked fast through the halls of the United Earth Defense Building in Geneva. She had been on her rare time off when she got an urgent call. The message was marked as top level, which meant it was not just boring paperwork. When she got to the meeting room, it was already full. She saw many faces she knew from Earth's military and government, all looking very serious. General Sam Miller stood in the middle, his face lit up by the floating map showing a part of space Susan did not know right away. "Admiral Wright, thank you for coming so quickly," General Miller said with a nod as she took her place. "We have a big problem." "What am I looking at, General?" Susan asked, studying the map. "This is our outpost at Alpha Star," Miller said, pointing to a small human base at the edge of where Earth had started to set up new homes. 2 days ago, we lost all contact with them. Yesterday, we sent a small drone to look. This is what it sent back before we lost it too. The map changed to show sleek, strange ships unlike any Susan had seen before. They moved around the outpost, like hungry sharks taking apart human buildings piece by piece. "The Zivaki," whispered Ambassador Parker, who had come in behind Susan. "It can't be." Susan turned. "You know these ships?" Parker looked pale. "They're space hunters. The Galactic Council has been fighting them for hundreds of years, keeping them trapped in one arm of the galaxy. If they're here, they've broken through the Council's defense line," Miller finished, "and Earth is right in their path." The room went quiet as everyone thought about what this meant. "Have we told the Council?" Susan asked. "We've been trying," Parker said, "but no one answers. All talk with Council space has been cut off." Commander Hayes stepped up, pointing to the map. "From what the drones saw, we think at least 300 Zivaki ships are heading to our solar system. At their speed, they'll reach Earth in less than 2 weeks." Susan felt her military training kick in, pushing fear aside to think about what to do. "What do we know about what they can do?" Parker turned on his datapad. "Not much. The Council kept most facts about the Zivaki secret. We know they are life forms made of something like silicon that join with their machines. They eat resources, mostly metals and radioactive stuff, and take over tech they find. Council records say they can resist energy weapons and gravity attacks. Which is why the Council laughed at our guns that fire solid objects," Susan said. "They've been fighting with the wrong tools." General Miller nodded. "Yes. When the Council made fun of our weapons, they showed us a big weakness in how they fight. They've become so used to energy and gravity tech that they've forgotten how well old-style weapons work." "We're on our own, aren't we?" Commander Hayes asked. "For now," Miller said. "We've sent people to try to reach the Council, but we must get ready as if Earth stands alone." Ambassador Parker looked worried. Even with all our military ready, we're talking about facing an enemy that has the Galactic Council on the run. We're outgunned. Susan stepped up to the map, studying how the Zavaki ships were lined up. Maybe in numbers and tech, she agreed, but not in how we think. The Zavaki have never met humans before. They don't know what we can do. She turned to speak to the room. And unlike the Council, we never stopped making better guns that fire solid objects. Project Big Arrow, General? Miller smiled for the first time. Ready as of last month, along with Sea Spear and Battle Axe. Then we have a chance to fight, Susan said, her voice firm. Humans have always been at their best when backed into a corner. General Miller stood taller. Admiral Wright, starting right now, you are in charge of Earth's defense fleet. All military ships and weapons are yours to use. Susan nodded, taking on the huge task. Our first job is early warning. I want sensors moved and every ship we have on watch at the edge of our system. Commander Hayes, start getting people off the outer bases and planets. Ambassador Parker, keep trying to talk to the Council. They need to know what's coming. As the meeting broke up and people got to work, Susan stayed at the map, studying the path the enemy was taking. The Galactic Council had seen humans as simple people with toys instead of real weapons. Soon they would learn they were wrong, and so would the Zavaki. Susan spent the next 3 days without sleep, working to get Earth ready. The factories that made weapons worked non-stop. Old warships were pulled out of storage and fixed up. Every spaceship big enough to carry a gun was being turned into a fighting ship. Status report, Susan said, walking into the command center. Screens covered the walls, showing ships, bases, and the slow but steady move of the Zavaki fleet toward. Earth Commander Hayes looked up from a screen. We have 50 ships ready to fight. Another 20 will be ready in 2 days, but that's it. We can't make more in time. Susan nodded. It wasn't enough, but it would have to do. And Project Big Arrow? The first 10 sets are ready, Hayes said. We're putting them on our biggest ships now. Project Big Arrow was Susan's big hope. After the Council had laughed at human weapons, she had pushed to make them even better. Big Arrow was simple. Huge metal rods, fired at close to light speed. No fancy tech, just basic physics. A solid object moving that fast could cut through almost anything. What about the Zavaki fleet? Susan asked. Still on the same path. But we got some new info, Hayes said, bringing up a new screen. The scout drone we sent past Mars sent back these pictures before it was destroyed. Susan looked at the images. The Zavaki ships seemed to be made of a crystal-like material. They flowed and changed shape as they moved, like living things. Their hulls look like they can fix themselves, Hayes said. But crystal can break if hit hard enough. Susan smiled for the first time in days. And our big arrows hit very hard. There's something else, Hayes added, looking grim. We found out why we can't reach the Council. The Zavaki didn't just break through their defense. They smashed it. Most of the Council fleet was destroyed. The room went quiet as everyone took in this news. So no help is coming, Susan said finally. No, Hayes agreed. We're alone, and the Council ships were much more advanced than ours. Susan looked around the room at the worried faces of her staff. They all knew the odds. 300 alien ships against 70 Earth ships at best, and these aliens had just beaten a much stronger fleet. Send a message to all ships, Susan said. I want to speak to every captain and crew member. Minutes later, Susan stood before a camera. On screens around her, she could see the faces of men and women on ships throughout the solar system, waiting for her words. This is Admiral Wright. By now you all know what we face. An alien force is coming to our home. They have already destroyed one human outpost, and they've beaten the Galactic Council fleet that was supposed to keep them away from us. The Council thinks we're done for. They think our weapons are too simple, our ships too few. They've advised us to run, to give up our outer bases to buy time. But that's not what humans do. We don't run. We stand. We fight. The enemy coming to our door has never faced humans before. They don't know that we've spent our entire history finding new ways to win when the odds are against us. They don't know that sometimes The oldest, simplest tools work when the fancy new ones fail. They don't know that Earth has been ready for this day since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there and whether it would be friendly. Every ship, every weapon, every man and woman in this fleet has one job: protect Earth. Use what we have. Be smart. Be brave. And remember, the first shot we fire will tell these Zivaki what kind of species they're dealing with. Humanity has faced extinction before. We're still here, and we'll still be here when this is over. That's all. Right out. As the screens went dark, Hayes stood beside her. Good speech? Do you think it will help? Susan shrugged. Words don't win battles, but they remind us why we fight. She turned to the main screen showing the enemy fleet. Now we need to make sure our first punch lands hard enough to make them think twice. The plan? Hayes asked. Simple, Susan said. We don't spread out. We concentrate our fleet at the edge of Mars' orbit. They'll have to come through us to get to Earth, and that's where we hit them with everything we have. Hayes nodded. The big arrows? Save them for their biggest ships, Susan ordered. Those will be their command ships. Take those out, and maybe the rest will be confused. As Hayes went to relay the orders, Susan stood alone, looking at the red dot of Mars on the big map. In 10 days, that's where humans would make their stand, where Earth's fate would be decided. The Council had called humans primitive, but sometimes the primitive survived when the advanced fell. Susan was counting on it. The Galactic Council chamber, once filled with mockery toward human military technology, now sat in stunned silence. The screen showing the battle between human forces and the Zivaki fleet played for the third time. The Council members watched as railgun rounds tore through alien ships that had resisted their most advanced energy weapons for centuries. Ambassador Alan Parker stood tall beside the display, no longer the humble diplomat but the representative of a species that had done what the Council forces failed to do for hundreds of years: decisively defeat a Zivaki force. As you can see, Parker said, our analysis confirms that the Zivaki's crystal structure is very vulnerable to high-speed kinetic impacts. Their gravity shielding, while effective against energy weapons, cannot fully stop physical force above certain speeds. High Counselor Vex Arton leaned forward, his 8 eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of stress rather than mockery now. Why did we not discover this weakness? Susan Wright, standing at attention beside Parker, spoke for the first time. With respect, High Counselor, your civilization developed technology in a different way than humanity's. You created energy and gravity weapons early, and stopped using kinetic technology. When facing the Zivaki, you tried to overcome their resistance by creating more powerful versions of the same weapons they were already used to handling. The snake-like Counselor Mahari uncoiled slightly. And humans never abandoned these projectile weapons. We made them better, Susan corrected. Railguns, coil guns, mass accelerators, all based on the simple idea of applying kinetic energy. Against an enemy evolved to resist energy-based attacks, they're very effective. The Council chamber erupted in overlapping conversations as they realized what this meant. The High Counselor raised a limb for silence. Admiral Wright, the remaining Zivaki fleet has retreated beyond our sensor range, but our experience suggests they will return with reinforcements. Your victory is impressive but limited. We must prepare for a larger invasion. Susan nodded. Earth is already increasing production of our most effective weapons. We've started to fit our designs to Council ships, as demonstrated in the battle, but we'll need resources and technical support to scale up. The High Counselor conferred briefly with his advisors before addressing the human delegation again. The Council acknowledges that we misjudged humanity's military capabilities. We offer our full support. Our technical databases are now open to your scientists. Additionally, we are dispatching engineering teams to Earth to assist with weapons production. There is something else we need, Susan said. And that is? Knowledge of Zivaki psychology, Susan replied. We've proven we can destroy their ships, but we need to understand how they think, how they make battle plans. What drives them? What scares them? In human military history, Understanding your enemy's mind is often as important as understanding their weapons. The council members looked at each other, clearly surprised by the request. Finally, the High Counselor nodded. A wise approach, Admiral. The Council will provide all available psychological profiles of Zivaki behavior patterns. Perhaps this is another area where we have been too focused on technology instead of more basic insights. As the meeting ended and the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, the massive Drodak representative, who had laughed the loudest at human weapons, approached Susan. Admiral Wright, the huge alien rumbled, I wish to apologize for my previous dismissal of your species' capabilities. Susan met his gaze steadily. No apology needed, Counselor. Underestimating an unknown factor is a common mistake, one the Zivaki are currently making about humanity. The Drodak's expression shifted in what Susan interpreted as respect. I begin to understand why your species has survived despite your technological limitations. You possess adaptability we had not expected. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats throughout our history, Susan explained. We've learned to work with whatever tools we have. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. Back aboard the Brave, Susan stood at the window, looking out at the distant stars. Somewhere among them, the Zivaki were regrouping, learning from their defeat, and preparing for another attempt. Parker joined her, holding a data pad with the information the Council had provided. It worked better than we hoped. The Council is now fully committed to supporting Earth's defense. Not that they have much choice, Susan observed. If Earth falls, they lose their only effective weapon against the Zivaki. Our engineers are already working with Council technicians, Parker said. They're installing railgun systems on Council ships. The High Counselor's flagship will be the first to receive the upgrades. Susan nodded, feeling a sense of satisfaction. In just a few weeks, humanity had gone from being dismissed as primitives to becoming essential partners in galactic defense. Admiral? A young officer approached. General Miller is on secure channel. He says it's urgent. Susan nodded and moved to the private communications room. General Miller's face appeared on the screen, looking grim but determined. Admiral, our deep space sensors have detected new Zivaki activity. A much larger fleet is gathering. Early estimates suggest over 1,000 vessels. Susan took a deep breath. Timeline? Based on their previous travel speeds, we have perhaps 3 months before they reach us. Then we have work to do, Susan said firmly. How's Project Mountain Storm progressing? Miller's expression lightened slightly. Ahead of schedule. The first prototype exceeded expectations in testing. With Council resources, we can have a full deployment within 2 months. And the asteroid defense network? 90% complete. We're mining the Jupiter Trojans for additional material. Susan nodded, satisfied. Project Mountain Storm was humanity's next evolution in kinetic weaponry. Massive accelerators built directly into small moons and asteroids, capable of launching building-sized projectiles. Against crystal-structured Zivaki ships, they would be devastating. Keep me updated, she said. I'll be returning to Earth tomorrow with the Council technical team. As the communication ended, Susan returned to the viewport. The stars didn't look the same to her anymore. Before joining the galactic community, humans had looked up with wonder, hoping to find friendly neighbors. Now they understood the harsh reality. Space was filled with dangers, and survival meant being ready to fight. But humanity had proven itself equal to the challenge. Their primitive weapons, once mocked by the Council, were now being adopted throughout the Allied fleets. Human military advisors were being assigned to Council ships, teaching tactics that had been forgotten by races that relied too heavily on advanced technology. Susan smiled at the irony. In trying to destroy humanity, the Zivaki had instead catalyzed humanity's rise as a major power in galactic politics. Sometimes being underestimated was an advantage. A month later, Susan stood in Earth's orbital shipyard, watching as the newly commissioned EDS Defiance prepared for its maiden voyage. At over 2 kilometers long, it was the largest warship ever, built by human hands, a joint project between Earth engineers and Council technicians. Commander Hayes stood beside her, gazing up at the massive vessel. Quite a sight, isn't she? 20 years ago, we were still launching chemical rockets to reach orbit. Now we're building ships that can cross the galaxy. With a lot of help, Susan noted. True, Hayes agreed. But the main guns are pure human design. The Council engineers were impressed by how simple and effective they are. Susan nodded. The Defiance carried a spinal-mounted super railgun that ran almost the entire length of the ship. It could accelerate a 20-ton projectile to a significant fraction of light speed, enough kinetic energy to shatter a small moon. Admiral Wright. A young ensign approached and saluted. The High Counselor's delegation has arrived. They're waiting in the observation lounge. Thank you, Ensign. Susan straightened her uniform and turned to Hayes. Ready to wow the Council again? Hayes smiled. Always, Admiral. The observation lounge was filled with representatives from Earth and the Council races. Susan noticed that many of the Council delegates now wore modified versions of human military uniforms, a symbolic gesture of the new alliance. The High Counselor greeted Susan with a formal bow. Admiral Wright, the Council is most impressed with the speed of your construction efforts. The Defiance is a remarkable achievement. Thank you, High Counselor, Susan replied. She represents the best of both our technologies. Council power, systems and FTL drive with human weapons and tactical systems. A true symbol of our new partnership, the Counselor agreed. My engineers report that the retrofitting of our fleet is proceeding ahead of schedule. 70% of our combat vessels now carry human-designed kinetic weapons. Susan nodded. Just in time. Our latest intelligence suggests the Zivaki main fleet will arrive within 6 weeks. They will find a very different reception than they expect, the High Counselor said with confidence. The Council has learned much from humanity in these past months. Not just about weapons, but about adaptability, resourcefulness, and the value of simpler solutions. Susan smiled diplomatically, but inside she wondered if the lesson would last. The Council races had a long history of technological arrogance. Would they remember the value of human, primitive approaches once the crisis passed? The EDS Brave dropped out of FTL at the edge of the asteroid belt, with the destroyers Swift and Thunder on each side. Ahead of them, sensors showed the main Zivaki fleet slowing down as it came into the same area of space. Tactical analysis, Susan ordered, standing at the main console on the bridge of the Brave. Lieutenant Woods worked quickly at her station. Multiple contacts, Admiral. I count 287 vessels of various sizes. They're arranging themselves into a sphere formation, largest vessels at the center. Commander Hayes studied the sensor data with a frown. Classic protection formation. They're guarding their command ships. Susan nodded. This was expected. After destroying their scout, the Zivaki would be cautious, but they still didn't know the full capabilities of human weapons. Status of our fleet, she asked. All ships in position, Hayes reported. 68 vessels arranged in attack groups as planned. The big Arrow platforms are in place, hidden in the asteroid field. Earth defense grid is at full readiness. Susan took a deep breath. The moment had come. Earth's defense fleet was vastly outnumbered, but they had surprise and home field advantage. Send the coded signal to all ships, she ordered. Battle plan. Thunderbolt begins in 5 minutes. As the bridge crew carried out her orders, Susan thought about what was at stake. Not just Earth and her colonies, but humanity's place in the galaxy. If they lost here, humans would be just another footnote in the Council's history. A promising species wiped out before they could reach their potential. Admiral, Lieutenant Turner called from communications. We're getting a transmission from the Zivaki fleet. Susan raised an eyebrow. They're trying to communicate? Yes, ma'am, it's being broadcast on all frequencies. Let's hear it, Susan said. The bridge speakers crackled before a strange multi-toned voice spoke in halting English. Attention, Earth vessels. Your resistance is noted. Impressive but futile. Surrender your system and your technology will be preserved in our collective. Refuse and be erased. You have 10 minutes to respond. Susan's face hardened. Typical. They think we'll just roll over. Hayes nodded grimly. What they don't know is that humans have never responded well to threats. Send them our answer, Susan ordered. but not with words. She turned to the weapons officer. Lieutenant Woods, target the largest vessel in their center formation and fire a single big arrow. Let's show them what primitive looks like. Woods smiled as she carried out the order. Targeting largest vessel. Big arrow platform 6 activated. Firing solution locked. Firing now. On the tactical display, Susan watched as one of their hidden platforms in the asteroid belt launched a single kinetic energy weapon. The massive tungsten rod, nearly 20. The space docks above Earth buzzed with more activity than ever before. Building robots swarmed around half-built ships as engineers worked day and night to get Earth's defense ready. What should have taken months was being done in days because of pure human will. Admiral Susan Wright's small ship docked with the EDS Brave, Earth's newest battleship and soon to be her main ship. Through the window, she could see dozens of similar ships being built, their sides bristling with railgun turrets and missile tubes, the weapons the Galactic Council had laughed at. Commander Hayes met her at the door, looking tired but still, standing straight like a soldier. "Admiral, welcome aboard." "Report," Susan asked as they walked through the halls toward the bridge. "The Brave is 89% ready for battle. The main railguns work fully, and engineering says the power core is stable. We're still fixing the point defense systems and loading the last of the special bullets." Susan nodded, thinking about the information. "And the rest of the fleet?" 12 destroyers and 4 cruisers are ready for battle. Another 8 ships will be ready within 48 hours. The civilian change program has armed another 30 merchant ships with basic weapons. It wasn't enough, not against hundreds of Zivaki ships, but it was all they had. They reached the bridge, busy with crew members checking all systems before launch. Lieutenant Karen Woods, the weapons officer, came over with a data pad. "Admiral, we've put in the new targeting info based on what the Alpha Star drone saw," she reported. "The Zivaki hulls seem to have a crystal structure that should break when hit with our tungsten carbide bullets." Susan studied the report. "Good work, Lieutenant. What about the special package? Project Big Arrow is being loaded right now. 6 kinetic energy weapons per big ship, each with the new warheads. Kinetic energy weapons, basically huge tungsten rods designed to be dropped from orbit, speeding up through gravity alone. Simple physics, devastating results. The new warheads were humanity's ace, specially designed to break into thousands of pieces on impact, creating many smaller bullets to hit swarm formations." "Admiral?" A communications officer called from his station. "We're getting a message from Geneva. It's General Miller." Susan moved to the command chair as the general's face appeared on the main screen. "Admiral Wright," Miller began right away. "Our deep space sensors have found something new. A single ship has broken from the main Zivaki fleet and is moving toward Earth very fast. It will get here in 6 hours. Susan looked at Hayes. "A scout?" "Most likely," Miller agreed. "This could help us, giving us a chance to test our weapons against one target before facing the whole fleet. Or it could be bringing something worse," Hayes said quietly. Susan thought about their options. "General, I suggest sending the Brave and 2 destroyers to meet it. We'll put the rest of the fleet in defense formation around Earth." "Approved," Miller nodded. "And, Admiral, Ambassador Parker finally got through to the Galactic Council." Susan sat straighter. "And?" Miller's face hardened. "They told us to give up the outer colonies to slow the Zivaki down, buying time for Council forces to regroup. They're writing us off as a lost cause." A cold anger settled in Susan's chest. "Then we'll have to show them they're wrong. Right out." As the message ended, Susan turned to her bridge crew. "Battle stations, get ready to leave right away. Our mission is to meet and destroy the incoming Zivaki ship." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as officers passed on orders. Susan felt a small shake as the Brave's big engines came to life. In the weapons bay, workers loaded the special bullets Susan had ordered made after the council meeting. Each railgun round had a dense core surrounded by a braking matrix designed to shatter on impact, creating a shotgun-like spread of superfast fragments. "Will it work?" Hayes asked quietly as they watched the map showing their course to meet the enemy. "It has to," Susan replied. The Council has been fighting the Zivaki with energy weapons for hundreds of years without winning. We're bringing something different to the battle. Hayes nodded, understanding her thinking. The oldest tricks are sometimes the most effective. Exactly, Susan agreed. The Council forgot that sometimes the simplest answer is just to hit something really hard with a very fast rock. As the Brave sped out of Earth orbit, Susan Wright knew they were about to give the Galactic Council and the Zivaki a lesson in human warfare they wouldn't soon forget. The first 6 hours passed in tense waiting. Susan had time to think about how strange it was that Earth's fate might rest on such a simple idea. The Council races had moved beyond physical weapons centuries ago. They saw kinetic weapons, guns, missiles, and bombs as caveman tools. But there was a reason humans had never fully given them up. Coming out of FTL in 1 minute, Admiral, the helmsman called. Susan nodded and turned to Hayes. Battle plan, we down? Let the destroyers Swift and Thunder flank us. We come in head-on and hit them with everything we have, Hayes said. Keep firing until they break. Simple. I like it, Susan said. She looked around the bridge at the young faces of her crew. For many, this would be their first real battle. Steady now. They don't know we're coming, and they don't know what we can do. The starfield outside the ship changed as they dropped out of FTL Drive at the edge of the asteroid belt. Ahead, sensors picked up the single Zivaki vessel slowing down as it approached. Mars orbit. Tactical analysis, Susan ordered, standing behind Lieutenant Woods at the weapons console. Single ship, about 600 meters long, Woods reported, her fingers dancing across the floating controls. Biomechanical construction matching the Alpha Star footage. Energy readings suggest powerful but standard drive systems. No sign it's seen us yet. Commander Hayes studied the sensor data. It's following a search pattern, looking at the area in a set way. Susan nodded. This confirmed their idea that it was a scout ship, sent ahead to gather info on Earth's defenses. Stay behind the big asteroid. Let's see what it does. For 20 tense minutes, they tracked the alien ship as it methodically examined the asteroid belt. Its behavior was almost machine-like. Admiral, Lieutenant Greg Turner called from communications. We're picking up signals from the Zivaki ship. Tight beam messages aimed toward the outer system. It's reporting back to the main fleet, Susan said. Can we read the content? No. The coding is beyond what we can break. Susan made her decision. We can't let it finish its search. Get ready for battle. She turned to Hayes. Battle Plan Alpha 3. Hayes nodded and relayed the orders to the destroyer captains. The 3 Earth ships fired their small thrusters at the same time, using the big asteroid's mass to hide their heat as they moved into attack positions. The Swift and Thunder moved to side positions while the Brave stayed on course for a frontal attack. Weapons status? Susan asked. Main railgun batteries charged and locked. Missile tubes 1 through 12 loaded with multi-phase penetrators. Point defense grid active, Woods reported. Susan took a deep breath. This would be humanity's first true space battle against aliens. Execute Alpha 3 on my mark. The bridge fell silent. Each officer focused on their station. Mark. The Brave surged forward from behind the asteroid, main engines firing to life. At the same time, the destroyers sped up on their side paths. The Zivaki vessel reacted right away, its hull rippling as what looked like defense systems activated. A shimmering energy field formed around it, the same type of gravity shield tech the Council relied on. They've seen us, Hayes announced. Energy readings spiking. Full speed, Susan ordered. Fire main batteries. The Brave shuddered as its massive railguns fired, sending 6 tungsten carbide bullets hurtling toward the Zivaki vessel at a large fraction of light speed. Seconds later, the destroyers added their fire. On the tactical display, Susan watched, as the alien ship's shields flared brightly as the first rounds hit. For a moment, it seemed the Council had been right. Their weapons weren't working against advanced shielding. Then something unexpected happened. The kinetic energy of the impacts, rather than being fully absorbed, caused a wave effect in the gravity field. The shield flickered, made unstable by the sheer physical force it hadn't been designed to stop. Second volley, Susan commanded, her voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. Another barrage of railgun fire streaked across space. This time, 3 of the rounds broke through the weakened shield, striking the Zavaki hull directly. The alien vessel shuddered, sections of its crystal structure cracking from the impacts. The enemy ship wasn't helpless, though. Energy beams lashed out, striking the Thunder and scoring a glancing hit on the Brave's port side. Damage report. Port armor at 72%. No critical systems affected, reported the engineering officer. The Thunder reports minor damage to its sensor. Array. Susan watched as the Zavaki ship tried to move away, but its movements were sluggish, suggesting their initial attack had damaged its propulsion systems. They're charging what appears to be a main weapon, Woods warned, her voice tense. Execute. Hammer protocol, Susan ordered. Hayes immediately sent the code to both destroyers. In perfect timing, all 3 Earth vessels launched their special payload, Project Big Arrow kinetic penetrators. 18 sleek missiles streaked toward the Zavaki vessel. Unlike normal explosives, these were designed with a single purpose: to deliver maximum kinetic force to a precise target.